Hello and welcome everyone to episode number 3 of Teach Me Tech. We're excited to have you today, and I want to say thank you to all of you for joining us on episode number 3. We had a really good time on our first 2 episodes. We learned a lot about cybersecurity, about technology in general. We had some pretty cool guests on too, that very thankful for them donating some time. And here we are, episode 3, and things look a little different, I guess, right? You can actually see me this time, and so that's a big improvement, I hope. But it's going to be very special for this episode, which is for one important reason. The topic which we'll be talking about, which if you've looked at the episode description and the notes, you'll see we'll be talking about HoloLens. And HoloLens delves into the topic of mixed reality, virtual reality, augmented reality, all these different types of different realities from the reality we have today. And I think it'll be much better if you're able to see it rather than just hear it. Certainly those of you on the podcast are listening through Spotify or other platforms and just hearing it, I think it will still be fantastic. Better be. But if you have the chance to check out the video, take a look. I think it'll be pretty cool for you, those of you especially who don't know a lot about this technology, to kind of see it in action, see what's out there, what are the potential uses of this technology, and kind of see me fumble my way through it probably in front of you. So before we get too far, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, Creative Foam, and you can find them online at www.creativefoam.com. They are your world-class provider of engineered solutions. You can also find them online on Facebook at Creative Foam Corporation with some really cool videos and things to learn about there, and as well on LinkedIn, you can search them up there and learn more about this fantastic company. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started. And what the topic is, as we said, is the different kinds of realities that we have. And we'll call them, question mark R, because we've heard a lot of different terms. So I think it's important maybe to go through what each of those terms are, and maybe more importantly, what they are not, so you can kind of learn about that. And then we'll get to actually showing you what we are using today at Creative Foam as our mixed reality mechanism, and kind of where we see this evolving and how we're going to use it in the future. So you may have heard the term augmented reality, or AR for short. Probably the best place you've seen that, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately if you love it, is on different kinds of apps, especially games that you have on your phones. The best one that comes to mind is probably the game Pokemon Go. So what happens on Pokemon Go, and we'll show for those of you seeing the video, we'll show a quick screenshot so that you can see what we're talking about here. But an augmented reality is basically you have a live view of what you see in the world, but it's augmented or enhanced by other experiences and digital mechanisms that are put into that reality that you can see. So for example, in that game, the augmented reality is you can see the world around you. I can see, if I'm walking down the sidewalk, I can see clouds, I can see buildings, I can see all of these things, but the game will put digital objects in that augmented reality space. So on my phone, as I'm looking, I see what's ahead of me, as if I were looking at it with my eyes, but then suddenly I may see the creature in the game that I'm trying to catch. And so there's some really cool uses for that technology. A lot of it is mobile phones and utilization there to enhance different kinds of applications. Another big player there is Snapchat, that has lenses that will let you do different things with the reality you can see. So there's a lot of fun ways of using augmented reality. The next big one is virtual reality, and that's probably the one that we're most familiar with because it's really been around for so long. You may have heard of things like Oculus Rift or the Google Cardboard or the HTC Vive. Those kinds of technologies where you have a wearable thing that you're going to put on you and you're actually getting immersed in a brand new reality. Okay, so what you see is not the reality you're currently in. It's not as if they are blurring the line between where you're at now and where you want to be. It is a completely separate reality. And there are a lot of really cool applications for this. Digital learning experiences. For example, if you have a medical professional who needs to learn how to operate on a patient, there are a lot of risks that come along with operating on someone for the first time, just by, the inherent risk of anything that you do in terms of someone's life, surgeries, analyzing a patient, even doing routine procedures carry inherent risks to them. So the opportunity to learn first in a virtual reality setting where there is no risk, where as you do something, you are getting instant feedback to let you know, good, bad, or otherwise, and help you learn along the way. There are some really, really amazing potential uses, and already it's something that we've already had in our society, and it's going to be evolving. But there are some tremendous possibilities for this. And I think most of us have probably already seen this. There are places you can go today that are basically virtual reality centers that you can go in and rent out the use of a VR experience and go through, and they have the hardware that you can put on, and the software that allows you to get into whatever setting it is you want to do. So there's some really cool opportunities there. And I think we've probably been pretty familiar with that. And now today we're starting to see the applications of it. We're starting to see how, it's one thing to have virtual reality and use it for fun and using it for entertainment and those kinds of things. But it's a very different thing when you can determine what value you can get out of this kind of technology, because there is certainly value there. It's just a matter of what are the best use cases for this, and how do you apply that into an organization that has no exposure to it, because a lot of companies simply don't have that yet. And if they do have it, they're in the very, very early cycles of getting it implemented and figuring out how much it's going to cost and all of those things. So it's still something very new. The next term that we'll talk about is mixed reality, or MR for short. And essentially what that is you're combining elements of VR, the virtual reality experience, and AR, the augmented reality. And the best one, which is what we'll be talking about today, that we can showcase with that, is actually the Microsoft HoloLens 2. And so it's a wearable device that you put on, and it kind of, as the name suggests with mixed reality, it's using both. So you're going to have digital objects represented in this space, but you're also going to have a true environment that is what you're physically in. So for example, I can put this wearable on and I can see a piece of machinery in front of me, and I can interact obviously in a physical world with that machinery, but I get some augmented reality experience through the form of maybe some indicators. So an arrow may point me in the direction of where I need to make an adjustment to a screw, or if it was detected that there is overheating, I am going to be able to have highlighted in red where is that taking place, so that I can quickly diagnose that and resolve the problem. So the mixed reality of the options available today is really probably the most exciting, because it has so many applications. It doesn't matter if it's manufacturing, if it's healthcare, if it is education. There are so many opportunities for us to be able to use this really, really robust technology. And I've been blown away. We've been able to use it here at Creative Foam for a little while to get us, a little bit used to how we can interact with it. What are the possible use cases? And I have been blown away by what we're able to do with it. I think the easiest one that we can take away, right out of the gates, is remote assistance. So what you can do with the HoloLens is I can put that on, and if I'm working in a plant, I can put that on and then have a meeting created through Microsoft Teams, and people in offices all around the world can join that meeting, see what I'm looking at. And maybe it's a technician, maybe it's a service engineer, something like that, that is interacting with machinery or assembly lines or whatever it may be. They are able to show everyone else what they can see and collaborate in real time digitally. So in addition to that, we can all chat, we can annotate on the video and say, no, you need to go here, or throw an arrow that's blinking and say, look at this. So we've already seen the value that it's bringing out just from remote support. If that's all we ever did, it's a really amazing product. But we can take it a step further. So there are opportunities for learning. If we have new employees that are unfamiliar with any of our machinery, unfamiliar with any tools or any of our processes, they can actually put the lens on, and after we've completed the setup of essentially coursework, they can go through a guided exercise using the HoloLens and see where they would do well, see where they would not do well, and get instant feedback to let them know, hey, you did great here, or you missed something here, here's where you need to go, let's try this exercise again. So some really fantastic opportunities for us to get value straight out of the gates with this technology. Another thing we've been looking at is, how can we utilize this to help us look at parts, three-dimensionally, so I can take a representation, a drawing of a part, and then get that into our mixed reality so I can actually see that, and it's represented digitally, but I can actually interact with that digital object and say, I want to move it, or I want to shrink it or stretch it, or whatever I want to do with that object digitally. And I can collaborate in real time with groups of people and basically interact with this thing that previously, even before COVID had happened, doing this kind of interaction just was unheard of. And COVID has certainly exacerbated the need to have this kind of technology in place, but the need has always been there. And there's a really fantastic gap that we can fill by using mixed reality through HoloLens. So we want to go ahead and take you through that, show you kind of what this product is, give you some examples. So what I'll be doing is I'm going to strap this thing on, hopefully, so you guys can see. And then we'll actually be able to show you from my eyes, the lens, what you'll be seeing and give you some examples of that experience. So we'll go ahead and step into that now, and we'll see you back, hopefully, on the other side of reality. All right, and here we are with the Microsoft HoloLens 2. Oh, you're looking into me to look into me to look into me, some Inception kind of stuff going on there. So this is the Microsoft HoloLens 2, and it's about what you would expect to see. It is a wearable. It straps on your head. It's got some controls here to manipulate in terms of sizing it correctly for each person's head. Some straps here as well to do that. You've got the main lens up here that actually tilts up and down, so for you to put it on and kind of get a snug fit on your head. It's got the charging port here on the side, as well as the power button, obviously. And that's really about it in terms of like, what do you do with it? It's got volume controls there, and you'll notice a lot of cameras. Obviously, very important to create a very immersive digital experience for you. And it does a really good job of that, I think. I've been using it for a while for different kinds of things, mostly remote support, but a little bit of interacting with some applications. And when you are wearing this, obviously I did mention the plus and minus buttons for the volume. So it does have volume. It is a very immersive experience. Think about if you were kind of in a room and you had no idea what was going on around you, that kind of all-encompassing feeling. That's what this starts to provide. But because, as we said, it is mixed reality, it's not just virtual reality, you still know and have a sense of being and belonging to this physical space that is being digitally affected and that you're interacting with. So it's a really cool blending of technologies, and Microsoft has done a great job with this on the second iteration of the HoloLens. As I mentioned, this is number 2. The first one came out a few years ago, and it's been improved upon since then. And really, really think this is a great product. So I'm going to go ahead and strap myself in, I guess. Maybe it looks like I'm hopping into the Matrix, I suppose. And as you'll see, I tighten this up a little bit. Looking a little Bill Nye the Science Guy-ish. And make sure all my straps are tightened. You want to have the one thing about all of these experiences, whether they are mixed reality or virtual reality, is that you want to make sure that nothing interferes with the experience that you're trying to have. And I'm just pressing the power button now to get started. But if you don't have a good fit on the lens, if the volume, as something as simple as the volume, isn't adequate, you will not be able to get the full immersive experience. And we're going to record here in a second. So I put this on, I press the start button, you hear the familiar tones of Windows starting up and all those kinds of things. And I'm presented with a interactive start menu here, basically. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video of myself. And we're going to go ahead and continue with, I'm going to take a recording here. We'll go ahead and push that. And we're going to record. So we've got recording starting right now. And here we are. So if this is working well enough, and I guess we'll find out once this podcast is all getting edited and put together, but you're really seeing a blank kind of a desktop here until, as you can see, I bring up my wrist and it's displaying a start menu button. And so inside of HoloLens, that's how I interact. And you can see now that I've got this view, and it's giving me some options here about what I can do. So I've gotten a very familiar screen to many of us. I can see, Microsoft Edge, I can see photos, I can see a couple apps there. A really important one is, and it just, there's another example of what it's doing. So I actually had turned voice recognition on, and it just heard me say Microsoft Edge, and there we go. I'm going to stand up because I've been sitting down, and I want you guys to be able to see. So you can see my setup here. I had my Microsoft HoloLens strapped to my head, but I also have my microphone here, and I'm actually going to carry that with me a little bit so that it picks up the sound. And I'll probably place it here. I'm hoping that this will pick up enough sound for us. And if it doesn't, we will adjust. I'm going to take this and stretch a little bit. And see, this is what we talked about a second before. I have this digital object that I can actually interact with. And if I do this correctly, I can actually pick this up. I'm going to go ahead and place it right here on this wall. So hopefully the microphone can hear me well enough. But I have this web page that you can see, I'm in my home. I have my wall that's physically there. I also have this digital object that I can interact with, and I can come in here and click and say, I don't want to go there. I actually want to, change the address that I'm going to. And you'll see it'll bring up a digital keyboard in this mixed reality space, and I can just start typing. G-O, and I know that's auto completing. Google.com, and we can go, and you'll see it brings up Google, or I'm sorry, messed it up there. So we're going to go ahead and start typing again. I had the .com entry there. I am still very new at learning all of this stuff. So, I'm making mistakes every now and then, but it brought up my top hit. I'm just going to go ahead and touch google.com, and you'll see it takes a second and it starts loading it, and boom, here we are. I'm on Google. So, really cool way to interact. Again, if I want to bring this up and get the start menu, I can do that. There are other ways of doing it. We have speech on, you can see. So it is actively listening, and it can do voice commands. I can also take photos, but there's another cool thing here, which is the 3D viewer. So I talked about us being able to manipulate objects three-dimensionally, and I think that's something very cool that would be available for all companies, hopefully, with this technology. There are so many use cases for this. As you can see in the example, for engineering, for anything that you want to represent digitally and interact with, and either save time, save money, do it more efficiently, you have those opportunities. So we'll say go. And this is a very basic example of, what we have available to us. So we'll go with the cheeseburger. No, I already had lunch. I'm not really too hungry, but there is our cheeseburger. And if I kind of move around, you can see that I'm looking at this cheeseburger in three-dimensional space. It's there. I can actually take this cheeseburger and move it up and down. And as you see, it says say there to place. So there, and it will place it for me there. Okay. That's a nice tip. Let me get rid of this screen and send it back there. So I have the ability to take a screen again and move it. I've got my cheese. Okay, guys, we had a little bit of a technical change there, but we have our hamburger back. We're in a different room with the hamburger. I wanted to finish showing you some of the capabilities. So we already talked about stretching and shrinking objects, obviously, which is really neat. You can grab it and you can see I pinch and rotate, and I'm able to rotate this object, and it doesn't matter what it is. If this, obviously we're looking at this hamburger, but if it were a building, if it were blueprints, if it were anything, we would have that same capability. You see we have a button here, so if you have embedded animations for this object, you can actually hit play, and we'll see what we get here for this object. Yeah, and there it goes. So we've got this hamburger that will animate for us, and we'll go ahead and pause it. When it goes again, I'll give it, see if I can move it. I'd like to make it a little larger. And there we go. So I pause it, and you can actually go in and look at these things a little closer. It's actually really amazing the little level of detail that you have here. And I can walk around it, and you can see nothing's changing in terms of the object. It's still there. It's being represented in our physical space as an augmented digital item. So really cool. You can see it's neat to imagine this as what it is, which is cool. There are applications for entertainment, but if you can imagine this instead as a 3D representation of a part or a patient, if you had a patient for a healthcare setting where you needed to be very cautious and manage risk, you could practice on this type of environment and be able to introduce surgical operations or things like that on a patient with very low risk settings. So anyway, that is HoloLens in a nutshell. And hopefully you've seen enough to get you familiar with what it can do, which is combine augmented and virtual realities into one new mixed reality. And there's a lot of really cool applications for this, and something that we expect all companies in the future to utilize very soon. All right, everybody, and that should do it. As you can see, I still got my lens here, but not plugged into the matrix, as it were. I'm back in our regularly scheduled reality, hopefully. I have to check around. But we want to say thank you, as normal, to our sponsor, Creative Foam. You can find them online at www.creativefoam.com or across various social media platforms at Creative Foam Corporation. And as usual, I want to leave everybody with a quote about technology. And this week's quote, Daniel Bell is the author, and the quote is, "Technology, like art, is a soaring exercise of the human imagination." And if that's not more true with what we have going on, then I certainly don't know what else is. So, as always, take care. We'll catch you next time.